Greetings, it's Jerry White here outside Washington, D.C. for your next month highlight reel. So I'm going to go through some of the fun things happening in March, which include, for me, a lot of travel. So allow me to share my screen so I can touch base and not run over today. I hope all is well with each and every one of you. And let's see if we're good to go. All right, March 2024. Can you believe it? We're finishing up the first quarter of the year. And there was a lot of traveling, listening, training, and of course, Women's History Month. So on behalf of the senior team, let's jump right in. So right at the get-go of March, I was heading over to Europe with Prita and board members to have a URI Europe board meeting. And we were hosted ably in the UK with Deepak Naik and Warwick Hawkins, dealing with so much of the logistics, the introductions, the partnerships. Well done all. And I learned a lot that we'll touch upon later this month as we're looking at regional models for URI and partnerships. On the global front, good news that work plans for 2024 and the budgets as of this past month are completed, and they've been developed by the staff in partnership with all the RLTs and input from regional CCs. So setting good precedents, and we're glad to have that done. Thank you, Alice and everyone. And then thematically, we still are driving in with a focus on an approach to violence that's community-based, and we'll be hearing from Karen a little bit later. So here we are in Europe at the Coventry Cathedral. You can see all of us smiling. This is after, I think some music, some prayer and peace, but also board meetings, trying to figure out what's the best way to move forward and how do you develop good relations with advisors, board members, partners, but also with the centrality of our elected global trustees, working with our senior staff and regional coordinators as part of the RLTs. So the role of the RLTs keeps getting clarified in guiding and overseeing budget and strategy development for each region, and that's exciting. But we also have many great talents and expertise to draw from, people who have been committed to URI for years, such as many standing here before you. So thanks to the Europe team for all the support and for the progress we're making. After the UK meetings in about 4 different cities, I was off to Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and meeting with partners here. It's not a great photo, I'll admit, but it's with, on the left, an Israeli who had lost friends in the kibbutz and also the Nova Festival, and was explaining the point of view of an Israeli farming family who felt vulnerable and so concerned about, of course, the terror that was unleashed. David Mast, to the next around the table, has recently moved to Tel Aviv and converted to Judaism. And he's been advising us on Circles of Light and is likely to be a new SAC member. Then Dawood, a Palestinian, telling his story of his family, displaced to what it's to be a Palestinian Israeli. Claude Bernstein with the orange hat looking down, intent on lunch. He was introduced to us by Biff, and he's a major supporter for URI and wanted to get to know us and be part of our conversations on this trip. And then we have Oscar Williams, who is part of, and Steve Miller, who are part of very significant Black Christian leadership in America. And Oscar will be helping us with the Circles of Light design and music production. And Steve is helping with some strategies for outreach on Black churches across America. So this was our eclectic group, almost like a mini CC gathering in Israel. And I would, you heard me say on the GC call and EC calls that, Israel and Palestine and the region are in the worst state I've seen in 40 years of being engaged from my first visit when I was 20 years old. And so we are all praying. You saw my letter of reflection. That's the tip of the iceberg of what I'm thinking, but thought that a message after my trip was appropriate for the Easter weekend. So I hope you had the chance to read it. More on this front as we go, but prayers to contain this spreading conflict. Here, when I was in after Dubai, I meant to meet with some interfaith leaders and got to see Farina over there, and then ended up in Mamoun's backyard with Daniel, our coordinator from Palestine, and the West Bank from Bethlehem came over to Amman. And here's a day of service for Ramadan on giving out food packages and clothing with our CC and Mafraq in the north, including several of the women who participated in the self-care workshops recently that you may have read about. So very proud of Mahmoud and the group and what they're achieving, as well as the German support we've been getting and these fantastic interns that come and do so much great work for URI. So thank you, Mahmoud, and for Omar and others hosting. Now we're looking at what are some things that Karen and Larissa are doing. So that's going to be a taped presentation by Karen that's also linked with this message. You'll be able to log on and have her describe what we're doing on violence prevention from Nigeria to India and also Central America. And also congrats to Larissa, so we can hear about the panels for the commission on the status of women. So in March, we hosted 4 events, thanks to Larissa, and had interns and partners running all over with URI flags, banners, pins, and visibility. There are 4 main events, including one that included CC members and leaders, women leaders from our URI Global Network. And then there was an annual service for remembrance and gratitude for all women and their contributions and sacrifices through history, as well as a training session on the public health approach to violence, using and applying it to the situation of women across the world. And lastly, an in-person event that was co-sponsored by a partner organization, the Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers. So the role of faith-based organizations and URI in advancing the rights of women and the peace and security agenda. So Larissa, a lot of work in March that you fulfilled, and we want to congratulate you and thank you for your outreach at the UN. Another good piece of news from like after February, when you remember Interfaith Harmony Week, was invented in Jordan, and King Abdullah every year gives out awards, and we won the gold and the bronze this year. So I don't know why we didn't get number 2, but we had Bridges from Eastern European Forum for Dialogue Association, and also the Journalists and Writers Foundation. So you'll see and can learn and read more about that in our newsletter, but congrats to the CCs and the good work happening on the front line, getting the recognition it deserves. Now we're looking over our overall growth. So we've been turning the tide on the number of CCs coming into our networks. There have been 13 new ones just approved in 2024, with a new country, Mali, represented. And then with each trip, we're seeing more perks and partnerships coming forward. There are 10 CCs that now are accepted for the engagement process with the new country of Honduras for those CCs. We also are looking at our overall application and appreciative interview process. We're a learning and adapting organization, so we feel like we can improve not just in the engagement and the onboarding of new CCs, but the overall like requirements and communication of our expectations. Also this month, as many of you participated in the listening sessions, I just want to thank Maria and Despina for hosting those so skillfully. And I think with the sensitivities of war in MENA, people feeling heard and being together online does make a difference. And so we'll continue this tradition as we did after climate catastrophes in Turkey and Syria and elsewhere. So I think it's important for our community to be listening and reaching out to each other in times of deep and raw sensitivities, as we're experiencing now in MENA, for example. And then lastly, the TSP certification process going forward, elections with Latin America and the Caribbean, multi-region, MENA and North America, all underway. So MENA was a little delayed with some of the conversations we've been having in Ramadan, but nomination forms are going out this week, and all certified CCs will be identified and preparing for the upcoming elections. Go democracy for URI. We're really proud. It takes a lot of work, and Diana and Mary, special shout out to you for helping and working with the committee there. Barbara as well, her leadership. So there we have it. Also, back at the ranch, Tom is consulting and working like every week with senior leadership, but meeting with Prita and myself together and looking at what would an expedited process for developing a strategic framework look like. You've seen some of the slides, but just to summarize the 3 primary objectives: we're not going to do everything or everything that could be done if we worked for the next 2 years on all aspects of this beautiful organism called URI, but actually setting strategic guidance. As we want to streamline the approach for 3 to 5 like strategic or major initiatives that we think will have the highest impact and import for URI. And then the process matters. So constructive multi-stakeholder engagement and collaboration among all the arms and tentacles of URI. And then something that goes on beyond just a framework or a piece of paper. We want ongoing, longer term conversations about operations, budgeting, and execution. So exciting time for us in the coming 6 months. Just like Kigali gave us a deadline to get a lot done before all meeting in Rwanda, this, as we target this summer for having a strategic framework, really focuses us to really do the work together and prepare for the GC, the framework that we would like to be approved for 2025 to 2030. All exciting and a creative opportunity to engage with each other. And then again, just a graphic on the expedited process that Tom is proposing, aiming to be able to be, finalize a proposal for the Global Council. There'll be no surprises there, but in order to begin our 2025 annual planning for operations. So it's important to keep in mind what we're focusing on, the priorities, which includes what we're not going to do. So strategic choices are adaptive and respond to the changing world we're living in now. It's not the same as 1993, 1997, or 2010, or COVID. We're in a new place, and we want to be relevant to the world. As I've been saying, the URI is needed more than ever. So let's get in shape for that in the coming months. So we'll see you next month for the 4th blockbuster monthly update for April. So coming soon, you'll be hearing about these draft theories of change, or what we're calling our approach and assumptions, building on the one-pagers that we reviewed and discussed in Kigali and through our impact assessment process. And then we have the SAC being revitalized. Thank you, Bill Swing and John Weiser as the co-chairs, and Biff helping with the nomination process. We have some good names and people, as I mentioned, who are going to be joining this spring, just in time for Circles of Light, get them to work. And then the certification of CCs ongoing. We'll hear more from Mary and Diana next month, and surveys of the GC staff and SAC members for the strategy process. That will be going out soon. And next month, we'll also hear more about the learning in action ecosystem, and we'll have a special taped presentation by Ruben and the team to keep us up to date on that. So thanks for listening. Thanks for clicking through and learning more from Karen Volker on the violence prevention work. And we'll see you next month. Feel free to call, feel free to write, offer feedback, questions. These are just some of the highlights so that everyone can be on the same page on some of the things that we're doing, and really excited about at URI. So thank you all for the partnership, and we'll be in touch. Bye.